Hello. Here we are again with Magium, the game Magium. And I'm starting back up where we left off. I changed my stats, and it seems like I passed a premonition check. So we're gonna see what happens. If we remember correctly, it was Barry, Darren, and Kate, and they were up against these three wizards who wanted to fight with them. So this is gonna be the start of the fight, I guess. So here we go. Let's get into it. Shortly after the young mage appears behind me, I see a vision of him slashing his dagger towards my neck. Was that a premonition? Sure enough, the young mage now slashes his dagger in the exact same way he did in my vision. Knowing where the hit is coming from, I managed to dodge it at the very last second. Right after I dodge, the mage kicks me hard in the chest, knocking me flat on my back. "Barry!" screams Darren as he rushes between me and my attacker, blocking the next strike with his shield.
"Ha! You left the woman undefended. Classic mistake,"
says the mage with the battle axe as his second son makes a dozen swords appear out of thin air, floating in front of him, and sends them all flying towards Kate. Just as the swords reach her, Kate's left arm gets covered in a large, thick block of ice, sculpted in the form of a shield. She puts it in front of her, and all of the swords get stuck into it.
"Left the woman undefended?"
Kate asks.
"So which is it then, woman or banshee?"
She lowers her left arm to reveal her face as she looks straight at the mage with the black beard. Her eyes are brimming with fury.
"Make up your mind!"
she shouts as the whole forest falls silent from the sound of her voice. The mage with the battle axe seems to have temporarily lost his cool and is looking a bit terrified. And he should be. Kate's killing intent is so strong that it almost seems palpable.
"I see backstabbers and sword throwers," she shouts. "And you call yourselves mages? Come, I'll show you real magic."
As she talks, the air all around us seems to be getting colder. So this is what it feels like to be in a tournament alongside the most powerful mages in the world. The bearded mage seems to have snapped out of it.
"Your parlor tricks won't save you a second time, wench. I don't care if you're a banshee or not. None of you are going to leave this place alive,"
he shouts as he rushes towards Darren with his battle axe ready to strike. As he approaches, I realize that if I don't do something quick, Darren will be forced to fight both the older and the younger mage by himself, while also defending me, and he won't have the luxury of using healing spells since they require him to be calm and relaxed in order to cast them. Maybe there's something I can do to help. Okay, let's see, what can Darren do? He can hide behind, hide behind Darren and let him handle them both. Draw the younger mage away from Darren and focus on avoiding his attacks, or fight the younger mage by himself. Okay, so I think we put one stat into premonition, one into toughness, and one into reflexes. So we might be able to avoid the attacks, because I don't think we want to hide behind Darren, because then that might cause Darren to die. So we're gonna do the second one. Hopefully that works. Okay. There's no way Darren can fight the two of them while defending me. Since the younger mage seems to be focused on me, I'll lure him away from Darren and try to evade his attacks for as long as I can, until Darren finishes off the older mage. Kate seems to have gotten the sword-throwing mage's undivided attention. He is constantly sending swords her way from every direction as she creates walls of ice to block his attacks. We're lucky. With Darren's weakness against weapons and my lack of magical talents, that mage would probably have been the hardest for us to fight. As the bearded mage reaches us, his battle axe clashes loudly with Darren's sword.
"I see you've enchanted your weapon well, healer,"
says the older mage.
"But how long can you last against a battle-hardened warrior such as myself?"
He roars and presses his battle axe harder against Darren's sword. As the two of them fight, I dash away towards the forest. As expected, the mage with the dagger is coming right after me.
"Barry, wait!"
Darren shouts after me. He attempts to follow, but decides against it. He can't afford to avert his eyes from the bearded mage even for a second. He's too dangerous. In the meantime, the mage fighting Kate has managed to surround her with floating swords aimed at her from every direction. He sends them all at her simultaneously in an attempt to overwhelm her defenses. She quickly surrounds herself with a sphere of very thick ice, and all of the swords once again stop into it. As she dismisses the sphere, all of the hundreds of swords drop to the ground with a deafening clang. Uh-oh. Okay, so we failed the speed check, but we successfully passed the reflexes check, so let's see what that does. My plan to lure the younger mage away is working far better than I expected. The mage keeps teleporting after me and trying to catch me off guard, but every time he thinks he's got me in a pinch, I simply dodge his strikes with ease. I knew that stat device would come in handy, but I never dared to dream it would be so useful. I feel like I could keep on doing this all day. Boy, what do you think you're doing? Stop fooling around and finish him. He's just an ordinary human, shouts the mage with the battle axe. Kate seems to have gone on the offensive. She's throwing ice cones towards the other young mage, and he is now forced to use his swords to cut them down, instead of attacking her. As he focuses more on defense, Kate's attacks become more and more relentless. It doesn't take her long until she starts sending hundreds of ice daggers toward her enemy. The mage doesn't seem to know how to use his technique to defend from such a large number of simultaneous attacks. It only takes a small miscalculation on his part to end the battle abruptly, as one of the ice daggers stabs him right through the heart, killing him on the spot. "No!" shouts the older mage when he sees what happened to his eldest son. Taking his eyes off his opponent was a fatal mistake. Darren didn't waste his chance and drove his blade right through the man's chest, his enchanted weapon cutting through the mage's heavy armor like a knife through butter. The bearded mage gave out one last gurgle before he drowned in his own blood. Terrified, the young mage with the dagger tries to teleport into the forest to get away, but his spell's range appears to be limited, and it only transports him halfway there. He tries to make a run for it, but Kate snipes him from a distance with an ice cone through his head, which killed him instantly. It was a gruesome show, but at this point all I care about is that I somehow managed to make it out alive. Darren is looking very angry. He's giving me an accusatory look as he's healing his wounds.
Barry, we need to talk. You haven't been completely honest with me, and we almost died back there because of it. You're not really a Stillwater, are you?
No, I'm not, I admit.
But you're not one of those local either. Otherwise that spell of theirs would have alerted us the moment we sensed your presence.
He's talking about the spell the organizers of the tournament cast on each of the participants before teleporting us here. We aren't allowed to hurt the humans that live on this continent, so their spell warns us when one of them is near. If what they said can be believed, their spell is supposed to stop us even before we try hurting any of the locals. If it's accidental, then it simply stops us before doing it. If it's intentional, it eliminates us from the tournament and sends us back. Their spell is also supposed to act as a means of communication with the organizers. They said they'll transmit the objectives to each of us individually. It's funny, all of those careful preparations on their side, and they never even bothered to check if I was a mage or not. Hell, what am I saying? They probably didn't even care.
So you must be a participant then,
Darren continues.
What reason would you have to participate in a tournament against the most powerful mages in the world?
I am after the same thing as every other participant. Oh, there's no quotes. I am after the same thing as every other participant in this tournament, Darren. But I'm not sure how wise it would be to tell you all of this. I am the prize that's being offered to the winner, the Magium. Nobody knows exactly. I can't tell if this is like quotes or in his head. What it looks like or what it's made of, but everyone knows the fact that it is the source of all magic in the world and that it can only be found on the continent of Varathia. All mages seek it, they crave it, they are certain that if they have access to it, they can increase their powers 100-fold and become living legends. And although it is a common misconception that the Magium is only useful to learned mages, my studies have led me to believe that the Magium is so extraordinary that it can even turn a normal human into a mage. I've searched very long for a way to get into Varathia, but the only way one can travel to their continent is by receiving a distinct invitation. Very few of those are sent yearly, and the people being teleported there are being held under direct supervision for the duration of their stay, and return with no information regarding the coordinates of the place. But when all hope seemed lost, the announcement came, a worldwide announcement by the kings of Arathia, that they were organizing a tournament where every single mage in the world was invited, and the winner would be granted access to the Magium. I knew then that there would never be another chance like this.
Why did you join this tournament, Barry?
Darren asked again. Oh, okay, so it was all in his head. Okay, so do we tell him the truth? Do we tell him he was forced into it? Or do we tell him that he's looking to cure for his sick sister?
Dang it, I don't know.
We're gonna tell him the truth. Let's see what happens.
I'm after the same thing as you, Darren.
Tell him.
I'm after the Magium. It's been my dream ever since I was a little to become a mage, and the Magium can grant me that wish.
Come on, Barry. You're going to have to make up a better lie than that if you want me to believe you.
He stops and looks me straight in the eye.
By the gods, you are being serious, Barry. I commend your bravery and determination, but you do realize you can't win this entire tournament just by bluffing, don't you?
If I might interrupt,
Kate says.
I think we should get out of here as soon as possible because anyone sees us standing amidst all of these dead bodies and figures we killed all of these people.
Darren glances back at her.
I don't understand you, woman. With the way you were fighting back there, why would you ever ask for an escort?
Everyone has their weaknesses, healer. Judging by how much you've been struggling this fight, I would assume that ironically, you are the weakest against other weapon enchanters such as yourself. But just because I handled these thugs with ease doesn't mean that I won't have any problems against other foes. No one can survive this tournament alone.
Yes, I suppose you're right.
Darren pauses.
Very well, let's keep going,
he says as he heads toward the trees. I start to follow him, but Kate stops me in my tracks. She has that very serious look in her eyes again.
Stillwater,
she says in a low voice, in order to avoid being heard by Darren.
I saw you fighting back there. You may have managed to convince Darren and that bearded fool that you are an ordinary human, but I am not so easily deceived. I don't know what your game is, but I'm going to keep an eye on you.
I'm not, I start to say, but Kate cuts me off and grabs me by the shirt.
Listen to me, Stillwater. I'm not interested to hear your lies. I just wanted to make sure you were clear on what I think of your little charade. Now, are you clear?
We could say crystal, or not really. Could you be more elaborate more? I think we just say crystal. Crystal, I tell her.
Good,
she says as she releases my shirt. Oh.
Now let's be off. We need to catch up to Darren.
Ancient languages check failed, level 2. Dang it. Okay. As we approach the forest, I see a female deer and her fawn appear from behind the trees. They make some noise when they see us, and then they hurry back into the woods. We decide to follow the path that leads to the mountains in hopes of finding a cave to provide us with some shelter for the night. Alright, so I'm going to end that episode there. I guess it's going to be called Chapter 2 episode, or Part 2. And yeah, hopefully you guys liked it, and this story seems interesting. I don't know where I'm going to spend my stats, but hopefully it all goes well. Alright, see you guys in the next episode.